Apple knows there's a big opportunity when it comes to big phones in the phablet space, and they saw that last year when they introduced the iPhone 6 Plus. It was their largest phone to date, and with its successor, they've added several new things to hopefully make it a pretty good offering for the next 1 year. Hey guys, John V from PhoneArena. You're watching our video review of the Apple iPhone 6s Plus. What's arguably the most compelling part about the phone has to be 3D touch. It adds a new dimension to interacting with the phone, and it's the evolution of multitasking. Now before we talk about that, let's go into the display. It's the same 5.5-inch 1080p Retina display from before, but they made some iterative improvements. For example, it's brighter at 593 nits, you have superior color accuracy, great viewing angles, and they slightly improved the color temperature to 7000 Kelvin, which is still a little bit on the colder side, but still better than before. Now 3D Touch works in similar premise to the S Pen stylus that Samsung has, but rather than being a separate thing, all that technology is incorporated into the display itself, so it's actually able to recognize varying degrees of pressure sensitivity, and you get some really inventive features with that. For example, if you're in the mail, if you're checking your email, you could preview a message by just pushing into it. It pops open a separate window and you could preview it. The same thing applies with links and also in the web browser as well. You also have some quick actions, so with some of the particular icons in the home screen, you can push them in, for example, the camera icon, and you get some quick functions out of it, like being able to take a selfie. Another cool thing is with it has a trackpad feature, so when you're typing up messages, you can manipulate the keyboard, the cursor a lot better. You just push into the keyboard, and from here you could just move it around, and you can even highlight stuff, and it's a lot more intuitive than the usual way. Multitasking is slightly enhanced. You'll be able to switch between two apps very quickly by swiping from the left side. And finally, it has also this pressure sensitivity drawing with the new Notes application. It's nice that it could recognize fine strokes, but it's not quite as intuitive as, say, as the S Pen stylus with the Note 5. Now, the biggest challenge though with this whole 3D touch thing is that it's limited to native apps right now, and there's no widespread support for third-party apps just yet. The second thing that really impressed us about the iPhone 6s Plus is the superior battery life performance versus its predecessor. It just destroys it. Last year, we were pretty disappointed by the tally, but this year, in our battery benchmark test, it achieves a mark of 8 hours and 11 minutes, which is just as the same as the Note 5, so it's a lot more long-lasting, and you can easily get a solid 1 day of normal usage with it. However, its charging is comparatively slower than the competition, and you don't have wireless charging either with it. Just like its predecessors, the iPhone 6s Plus is just a great all-around performer with its camera. They've upgraded it to a 12 megapixel iSight rear camera. In the front, it jumps up to a 5 megapixel one. As far as the interface is concerned, it's the same as before. It's pretty minimalist with its shooting modes, and there's no manual controls, unfortunately, but at least it's very fast at snapping images. What's new though is this feature called Live Photos. It's kind of similar to HTC Zoe, so when you take a photo, basically the phone will save the moments taken before and after the shot and basically make a small video out of it. Now it's pretty cool and gives it a little bit more a dynamic approach, but it does take up more space on the phone. In terms of the quality of the camera, there's more detail captured around by it, so you could have some flexibility of cropping images later on. It has a good handling of exposure and dynamic range. Under artificial lighting though, color tends to favor a slightly yellow and greenish tone. And under low light, it's still brightly lit, so it exposes some of the details, but those details tend to be a little bit softer. It's still a pretty good performer in that area. With the front camera, of course, you can get better details because of the 5 megapixel snapper there, but in addition to that, they've added a flash of sorts. So basically, when you take a shot, it's gonna pop up a white image very quickly to imitate a flash, and it's quite effective in doing it. For video recording, it's really neat that optical image stabilization is now enabled, so videos are shake-free and pretty steady looking. And we also see 4K video capture, so you get a lot of detail. You also have clear audio, quick focus, and pretty good handling of exposure, so great qualities all around with video capture. In terms of the slow motion modes, now they have two options. They've upped it to 1080p at 120 frames per second, but if you go down to 720p, it's pretty fast at 240 frames per second. This is the fastest iPhone to date too with its performance, and that's attributed to the new Apple A9 processor and the 2 GB of RAM it's packing along. You have the most up-to-date iOS 9 experience, which is the same that you'll find on the iPhone 6 Plus now, but with the exception of those specific 3D touch features. Now overall, it's still kind of lacking the type of true multitasking that power users really crave. But generally speaking, it's pretty simple, straightforward, and intuitive. And with the upgraded processor, it's a lot more responsive and you get less refreshing of apps. You also get improved Touch ID. The fingerprint sensor is a lot faster in recognizing our fingerprint, so unlocking the phone is pretty fast. And topping it off, it's a killer performer with its gaming processing performance too. And many of the benchmark tests we're running, it's able to maintain a pretty solid 60 frames per second too. Since we're in that S year, it means that it recycles the design of its predecessor, but there are some new changes to it. For example, it now features 7000 series aluminum, which makes it a lot stronger than last year's unit. Same premium svelte construction, but it is heavier. And you also have a new rose gold color if you want to go with that. But to tell the truth, it looks more like a salmon color than anything else. Unfortunately though, Apple is still sticking with a base storage option of 16 GB. That's just not enough, especially when it captures 4K videos and you also have live photos. It just eats it up very quickly. You're better off picking up the 64 GB version or even the 128 GB one. Still, the multimedia experience is also unchanged with it. Now, it has no problems playing videos and whatnot because of the large size screen, but you don't have that true multitasking element in place, so you could do something else besides watching a video. With the Apple Music, it's the same on pretty much any other iPhone out there. It's pretty straightforward. If you're a subscriber, you'll benefit the most out of it, but besides that, it plays local content pretty well and effectively. Unfortunately though, the speaker itself is weaker this time around. It puts out 69.1 decibels of power, which is far less than last year's model. And with that, it makes it very tough to use the speakerphone for making phone calls. It's just so subdued. You'll probably just want to stick to using the earpiece, which produces some pretty good results with it. Now, as we've seen this year alone, carriers have moved away from the subsidy model. Instead, if you plan on picking up the iPhone 6s Plus, you're going to be either paying in full price or paying it in monthly installments until it's paid off. And this ranges from $750 to as much as $950. And you get what you pay for. It's a fantastic phone, great build quality, great overall performance, and you have some new features like the inventive 3D touch technology that's on board. And of course, they made the iterative improvements to the battery life and the camera that we really appreciate. Still, there are several low-cost options out there to think about that really make for a compelling offering, like the Moto X Pure Edition. You have also the ZT Axon Pro and even the OnePlus 2. We've seen this year that a lot of companies have been focusing on value, but if money's not a concern, you really can't go wrong with the iPhone 6s Plus. It's still going to be one of the phablets to beat for the next 1 year.